Good morning to you Kenyan citizens and welcome. This is Money Monday, your go-to show for financial tips. You as a business person, you want your business to grow, or you are aspiring to have a business of your own, or you want to get all the financial wisdom. This is the right place to be, where we give you the tips and the strategies to unlock success and build wealth itself. And today, being on a Money Monday, let's talk about what has been happening, when it comes to the world of money. Let's talk about the budget itself. That is the big picture, because that is the big picture itself. That is the 2025-2026 budget, because this is something that affects each and every person, especially when it comes to the economy. A day-to-day person, a common one, and kila mtu anakuwa affected in this thing. And let's talk about it, because when it comes to the 2025-2026 budgets, kuna highlights zimekuwa zikitolewa, and you've been given a few breakdown of what we should be expecting for the budget. But you remember that is last year, that is in June 2024, the Gen Z protest for the public, the Gen Z protest and the public reaction kwa budget ilikuwa imetolewa. And that is against the finance bill, which proposed new taxes in various sectors when it comes to the economy. And the young people are fueled by concerns over rising costs of living, unemployment, and government borrowing itself. And when it comes to the economic impact and the protest of the budget policy, they're saying that that is the government revenue collection, it dropped. And now because it dropped, should we expect an increase this year ama a decrease? We have to figure out about that. Then when it comes to the government spending, it reduced, and they're saying expenditure were approximately, that is 103.4 billion, and they're saying that it reduced the target due to the cuts. And when it comes to the county government allocation, still you're going to check out on that. And what does this really mean to a common wananchi? Because taxes may increase, ama taxes may decrease. What should we expect as a Kenyan citizen out there? Ukipima maji, what do you think you should expect, especially for the new budget? Because more VAT or more pay, what should we expect? Because if you say more VAT or more pay, the tax means high costs for fuel, food and services, because tushaona mambo imeanza kuongezeka. Like we are expecting fuel iongezeke with 7 shillings. We don't know if the cost, and if fuel has been affected, even the transport sector imekuwa affected, which transports food. Kwa everything, we're expecting things to go higher, but we don't know. Probably the government might decide to surprise us. These are the kind of things that we'll be checking out. Then we check the business impact on how the budget affects, that is the business, the small SMEs and the entrepreneurs itself, because kuna mambo ya tax, incentives, hizo zote zina affect things to do with business. Then that is what we'll be checking out. Then the question of the day: will the budget ease the cost of living, or will it be a burden for a common wananchi and businesses? Talk to me and tell me your thoughts on that. That is on 0799200100. That is our WhatsApp number. And still on the social media platforms, that is on Facebook and YouTube at Mizpah Tv Kenya on Money Monday. And today I have an amazing guest that is CPA Kitur. He is a financial consultant, so he has a world experience and he is full of knowledge when it comes to things to do with finance and budget itself. Without further ado, allow me to introduce him to the show. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Uko salama?
Niko poa kabisa.
Kenya inakupeleka aje? How is Kenya, when it comes to money? Are people saving, with the tough economic times?
Yeah, Angela, that question is a bit wide. I can explain in the context of even disposable income. I can explain even in the context of probably the businesses we are working for.
But in general, are people saving, Are people still saving, compared to the last year?
The disposable income continues to decrease,
Oh, it's
especially
decreasing.
for the employed persons. I was doing a calculation. Somebody are earning, let's say, 100K. You may find that the disposable, when you compare with probably 2022 or before, the disposable income has gone down by around 10K. And this going down by around 10K has been as a result of the increase in the coming in of housing levy,
the taxes is okay generally.
The deductions. So the disposable income has gone down, and it's really affecting the saving. Okay. Then on the other side, we have, when I explain in that context, we have the aspect of NSSF, where the rate has gone up. So going up, it means now there is kind of a forced savings that has increased the common one. But overall now, the net disposable income has gone down. So your personal savings, especially for a salaried person, and even businesses are being affected because we are living in an economy, a circular economy, where when the disposable income has been affected, you find even the demand for goods or services is going down. So meaning to the businesses, the profitability aspect is going down, affecting also the aspect of saving. So it's a wider term, and you can look at it in several contexts.
Okay, and now today we'll be talking about the budget itself, especially we're expecting a new budget, that is Kenya 2025-2026 budget. And people are asking themselves the tax burden or economic breakthrough, for citizens. And now I want you to explain to us, help us, a common mwananchi general, understand what are the factors that the government consider when it comes to the budget.
Angela, thank you for that question. Probably before I dive into that budget, that budget making process is continuous. Even as we talk about the 2025-2026 budget, the other one currently is under implementation, after which now the auditor
so it's a continuous
a continuous. And even so it's I can say it's multiple. Even as we talk of the coming one, then this other one continues to be being implemented, and then at the end of the year, which is by end of 30th June, that is the closure of the financial year, the auditor comes in now.
So hiyo ya 2024-2025 itamaliza effect yake, that is
by 30th June 2025. Then once that is completed, then the auditor comes in to now audit. So it's a continuous process, and the budget itself, it's a balancing act. When we talk of the 2025-2026 budget, it's a balancing act where the government is looking at the potential sources of revenue and the major potential.
So those are the things they consider.
Yeah, they consider the potential sources of revenue, and in our case, the major component is the tax. Then we have loans, we have the grants received from development partners. There are grants Kenya is receiving, or even the county governments are receiving. Then now you look at the expenditure side. As you look at that expenditure side, as I was telling you, it's a balancing act. Balancing act in the sense that the government wants to kind of reduce the deficit, because when you look at the revenue versus the expenditure, like in this 2025-2026 budget, the total expenditure, estimated expenditure is around 4.2 trillion.
And is it possible for the revenue to be high compared to the expenditure?
It's possible,
Is it
though
possible?
It has never happened in Kenya. There was a time USA there was a surplus where now the revenue are more than that. But again, once they become more, then you can now plan to see how you can balance it. Because at the end of the day, if you are having revenue, you want to spend that revenue. With government, we are not saying we want to save. That surplus, we don't want to save. Saving for what? So,
and how does the budget compare? That is the 2024. How does the budget compare the 2024 budget in terms of priorities?
There is a national policy known as national tax policy, which came into effect last year. It has been a draft national tax policy for long, but it came into effect the beginning of last year. And this national tax policy, it wants to do away with uncertainties. So that every year we have been having finance bill. Last year we had the finance bill 2024, which was which Gen Z through their force made it discontinued.
And did it affect anything?
Yeah, it affected. Because even when you look at the deficit which the government had anticipated, because as we were talking about our budget, you are balancing the revenue versus the expenditure. So you have the expenditure like 4.2 trillion, then now the revenues. So if you affect the revenue part, then it means now even the expenditure part will have to be affected. And that resulted in government doing something known as a fiscal consolidation. Fiscal consolidation is the government tried as much as possible to reduce the expenditure. And when the government reduces the expenditure, and by the way, government is a major spender, and when a government spends, then we'll have money in circulation. So it really affected the money in circulation. So that the government went to an extent of borrowing. They had projected a deficit of around 830. Initially it was 700 and around 700 billion. But now when some aspects of revenue was affected, when the Gen Z came in, and now the revenue aspect had to be done away. Some adjustments which they ought to be increased in taxes in various aspects of the economy, which affected our revenue. I think it was close to 300 billion. So that revenue of 300 billion, and you want to, and the expenditure stands at that amount, then you are forced. And with government, expenditure, there are things which you cannot do away with.
But like, the Gen Z, the reason why they are protesting, it is because the budget was not favoring a common mwananchi. Could that have affected the productivity on the returns zenye government walikuwa wanapokea?
Sure. It really affected because the protest was basically on the issue on the revenue side. It was not on the expenditure side. Because I don't think if we are told we are building this road, you can protest for that road not to be built, and unless there are some other issues. So it really affected majorly the revenue aspect. So when that was affected, the government had to do what I was telling you, fiscal consolidation. Fiscal consolidation is now where the government is I can say living within its mean. It means
is it really living within its means? Our government,
they have to reduce.
But the debt iko juu sana. Imagine we have the public debt. We have the internal debt. It's high. Unajua yote inaangukia wananchi.
Then basically the entire thing is the public debt, which is now revolving around 10 trillion. It's close to 70% of our GDP.
But still ni nani atangukiwa na nani atangukiwa na huu mzigo?
At the end of the day, it's the mwananchi. Because all these taxes, even when you talk about taxes, when we talk about debts we are borrowing from outside, it's the mwananchi who is paying.
And this bad, what can a common mwananchi, I would probably could give us, let's say you could give us 5 tips or 2 tips. What can a common mwananchi do, to survive within what is happening? That even if taxes is zitongezeka, still they will maneuver or survive in Kenya.
Thank you for that. Probably I can move back to what I was telling you of the disposable income. What will you do if your disposable income has gone down? Like somebody who was earning 100,000, now as a result of the changes, the adjustments on the deductions and NSSF, the disposable income has gone down. And your liabilities still remain the same. So now you'll have to strategize. You also do your own fiscal consolidation, kind of. Probably you can reduce some expenditures.
Some expenditures like?
Like people here, you saw the other time when there was a fuel increase, people had to leave their vehicles in their homes.
Which
use
is
the public
sad.
means.
It's
which
so
is
sad.
That is kind of a fiscal consolidation on an individual level. Another aspect you can do as an individual, probably now you can do side hustles that will give you money to at least, because there are some liabilities which will not go down, like school fees for your kids. You cannot pick them and take them to probably a school of a lower cost than before, even as you do that process of your individual living within the means. So persons were forced, and businesses were forced to scale down, and even some few, according to Kenya Association of Manufacturers, there are some manufacturers which closed down their businesses in Kenya and moved to other places.
But sasa hii ni kufukuza, tunafukuza investors in our country.
Actually, that was the case because when these issues of shift, housing levy, NSSF, you know there is the component in which the employer is paying. Like if we say 6%, so 6% on the individual, 6% on the employer, is used to do with 1.5% of the housing levy on the employer, 1.5% on the employee. So what happens when you have over 1,000 employees and they earn quite a lot of money each? Then it means like the housing levy itself, that component, that expenditure on the employer came in, and it's a cost that was not there before. So the income or the profitability has went down. So businesses had to shift to other places.
Now this means that the budget itself had an impact on the proposed tax policies, that is in businesses and investors. For example, let me give an example with tourism. You know, kuna watu walikuwa nakuja, the tourists walikuwa nakuja in our country, kuna hoteli walikuwa nalala, and because the taxes zilipanda juu, ilibidi pia the hotels waongeze the prices. You know, that is inafukuza the tourists in our countries. What can such kind of businesses like tourism and the hotels do to cope up with that?
Though now statistics which are in shows that with that example you have used, shows that there is an increase in the number of tourists coming in.
Yeah, that is an irony.
It's a
we can say that is an irony. Yeah.
There was it's something last year I was reading an article that was basically looking at the way you are saying. It was looking at some tourists have moved to places like Tanzania because even that component, that cost you are paying to go to the parks, national parks. You know, it was increased sometimes.
Yeah, it
back,
is true.
And even landing fees on aeroplanes going to such places, parking vehicles in those places, national parks increased, and this forced some tourists moving to other countries. Even Serengeti benefited, which is Tanzania, as a result of that. So even as we talk of that irony, was there is, and they are talking of an increase in the number of even bookings in the hotels, in the coast. I think you must have seen last year, December, they are talking about they're almost fully booked.
Could we say so that now they are a little bit favored? You know, I don't know.
But the government has also done it has tried to kind of attract because I think they have done marketing outside. I think there is this board known as Kenya Tourism Board. I saw last week the MD was being given an award that it's one of the government entities that are performing. So you know, and one of its function is basically to market Kenya. So it must have marketed Kenya, and you find the number of tourists increasing. So though they start, we can still say there's some positive net effect, even in the aspect of the tourism, which has resulted in even the number of tourists coming into Kenya. Otherwise, other factors kept the constant. If let's say we don't have that marketing and the positive marketing of Kenya outside, probably we would see the tourism sector being affected, hotels being affected. And still, Madam, can I still continue on the aspect of that hotel? When the government did a consolidation, Madam, it reduces the cost spent on even hospitality industry. Fiscal consolidation, government reduces spending on its employees going to big hotels to do conferences and the like. So
are there regulations that businesses can take, things these big hotels, beauty spas, that they can take to, or regulations and measures zenye wanaweza weka, so that even if the taxes are high, even if the budget will not be on their side or favor them, still the business will continue running effectively?
Yeah. One of it, Angela, and that is something good. You have heard of domestic tourists, where now I think hotels have had a package where they have differentiated if you are an international tourist or a visitor, your rates are different. If you are a local one, your rates are different. And even during off-peak period, I think between January to somewhere May, you find the hotels, even the cost of bookings of the hotels going down.
Okay.
So that is a strategy they are using, and several other strategies.
Let's hold on that. We go for a short break. Then when we come back, we'll check that is the economic impact and debt that the budget has on businesses. Still get to check the business and employment sector and the impact the budget has had on investors and financial markets. Kenyans, stay tuned. I'll go for a short break in case you have questions either on how your business can navigate on these tough economic times. Talk to us on 0799200100 and still on social media platforms, that is on Facebook and YouTube at Mizpah TV Kenya. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.
Mizpah TV, keeping the fire of the altar burning.
Praise the Lord. Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana, mpendwa mtazamaji. And this is a wonderful season ambayo tunaingia. Ni season ya Mizpah School of Intercessory Prayers and Deliverance. Na tungependa kuwakaribisha wote kwa shule hii ambayo hufanyika kila mwezi wa 4 na mwezi wa 8 hapa Mizpah. So you are very much welcome to be here. This is a school that will change your life, it will transform your life. Usually inakuwa na 4 modules ambazo huwa zinafundishwa. Number 1, understanding bondages and curses. Very, very, very important. Tuweze kuelewa kwa nini kama Wakristo bado tunafuatwa na vifungo na laana katika maisha yetu. And what can we do about it? What can we do about it? Number 2, we also taught about altars. Kuelewa jinsi ya kuharibu madhabahu ya shetani na kumwinulia Mungu madhabahu ambayo yatanena juu ya maisha yetu, juu ya familia zetu na hata juu ya taifa. Na pia tunafundishwa spiritual warfare, that is number 3. We are taught about spiritual warfare, how to fight as a believer, how to wage in prayer warfare and win. That is very, very powerful. And number 4, we are taught about new creation lifestyle. Hii ni shule ambayo haibagui mtu yoyote, haijalishi umetoka dini gani ama kanisa gani. You can come for this school and your life will be changed and transformed. Kwa hivyo kuna watu ambao wanaingia Mizpah majira haya kutoka kote hapa Kenya na hata nje, na tunawakaribisha wote, usipitwe. Hii shule ni ya baraka na Mungu atabadilisha maisha yako. You can also recommend somebody to come. Kama unajua kuna watu ambao wanahitaji mafundisho, waombezi, watumishi wa Mungu, ministers, watu wote ambao unahisi ya kwamba they can be blessed by this program, please let them know. Wakaribishe na maisha yao yatabadilika sana. Mungu awabariki sana. Welcome to Mizpah School of Intercessory Prayers and Deliverance. Amen.
We invite you to join our online family on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, and on TikTok at Mizpah TV Kenya and Mizpah House of Prayer. And now we have great news. You can watch Mizpah TV anywhere on Twitch app, which is available on Google Play Store and Apple Store. For great inspiration in worship, word and prayer, and other entertaining and encouraging programs tailored for you. Welcome to our online family.
Mizpah TV, keeping the fire of the altar burning.
Monday, and today we're checking on the 2024 and the 2025 budget, still giving the highlights of the 2025 and the 2026 budget. And the question is, you know, the tax, is it the tax burden, or should we expect an economic breakthrough? That is on the 2025 and the 2026 budget. And before we went for a break, we our guest, that he is CPA Kitur, he's a financial consultant. He helped us understand the budget itself and the factors that the government considers. Still tumeangalia the main sources of revenue when it comes to the budget. Then we got to compare, that is the 2024-2025 budget in terms of the priorities that the government huwa inaweka. Now in this segment we're going to check, that is the economic impact and debt of the budget itself when it comes to business. Welcome back, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Angela.
And now I would love, on the I've given the viewers the highlights on what we have been checking on the first segment. And on this segment I would love you to help us understand or elaborate when it comes to the Kenya public debt. You know, we said tuko na deni mingi sana, and as that is a major concern, especially to the citizens. And I know people are asking, is the government borrowing more? How many strategies za debt shida, debt management?
Thank you, Angela. There is this aspect of the impact of the budget on the economy.
Yes.
You know, now once the budget has been implemented, executed kind of, now it has the impact on the economy. And that is why when the government is coming up with the budget, process, making process, it tries to balance. Because at the end of the day, we expect our economy to grow. Probably when I go back a bit, our economy grew in the 2023-2024 by 5.6%. Last year it grew by 4.6%, so it went down.
Yeah, it dropped.
And there is a projection in this the coming financial year. We expect the economy to grow by 5.3%.
You're expecting a growth?
Yeah.
That is an irony, because people are complaining.
Yeah, that is a projection by the government. Yeah, based on Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So the debt, you're asking a question on the debt.
Yeah.
You know, the public debt, the repayments which are being repaid even currently, dates back to even debt which was taken in 1980s. So as I was telling you, balancing act is so difficult to an extent. Currently, out of consolidated fund services, fund services comprises of a debt, public debt, be it external borrowing or internal borrowing, and now the debts due to retired civil servants, it's going to around 1.4 trillion in this coming budget. So the debt itself component, and it's the finance cost majorly. Finance cost is that cost that you are incurring to obtain that loan, or even to repay as you are repaying that loan, kind of the interest component. It's going to around 1.2 trillion. And
that is going to be a burden to a common man.
And it's a burden in the sense that you know, the government, as it tries to now get the revenues to repay, you know, actually it's us who are repaying this debt.
Yeah, but you know, my question is this: when it comes to the budget, wanakuwa meka, for example, they say 5 million imeenda kwa education, you know, 10 trillion imeenda, for example, to the health sector. If they have allocated the funds in the budget, nini huwa inawa push, then they take another debt? Because if they use this money wisely, I don't see a reason of taking the debt itself.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. I started by telling you initially, you know, public expenditure, even anticipated in this coming budget, it's 4.2 trillion. This coming budget is 4.2 trillion. And the government expects to collect 2.8 trillion from taxes. Then there is something known as AIA, appropriation in aid of around 500. So kind of what the government expects to generate from taxes and these other sources of income due to the government, it's around 3.3.
Yeah,
so your budget is
9 trillion.
Yeah. So your budget is 4.2. Your expenditure is 4.2 trillion, but now you are getting 3.3. So what happens to the difference? You have to borrow. So you have to borrow. And
without considering that the Kenyans knew what watalipa ama
you know, unless Angela, probably the government does away with some expenditure component for us to have a balanced budget. But again, it will have even an impact in the economy, because imagine we don't do any development because our sources of revenue are far less than the expenditure you want to look at. When you look at this coming budget, the 2025-2026, the government anticipates to do a development, infrastructure development of around 700 billion. So if you remove that 700 billion from that 4.2 trillion, 0.7, that becomes 3.5, and the source of revenue is 3.3. So if you don't want to borrow, then it means now do away with development, do away with even other, you do some consolidation, then now you. And again, even when the government is borrowing, there are some borrowings which are being borrowed for the purpose of to net over other borrowings initial. Like when you look at the treasury bills and treasury bonds, which are being rolled over on an annual, on 3 months, 90 days, and what half year during the year as a part of our borrowings. So some are being borrowed for the purpose of repaying. Ni kama Angela, ni kama umenikopa 90 shillings, na imefika time ya kurepay hiyo 90 shillings. Enda borrow kwa
so that he can repay. That is what is happening.
Oh
my goodness.
So that is a reality. And I was looking at this budget there. The government seems to borrow more currently now. In this anticipated budget of 2025-2026, the government wants to borrow more from the local markets.
Wow.
Than that is domestically than the outside market, because when you look at it, it's around 680 billion versus around 180 billion from the external. So the effect on that, Angela, there is something known as crowding out the businesses in Kenya. You know, financial institutions who are the bigger investors in these treasury bonds and treasury bonds, which is the source of domestic market, will tend to crowd out. Sasa itakuwa difficult for us to get loans because financial institution will opt to loan it to the government. You know, when you talk of domestic borrowing, it's the government selling treasury bonds and treasury bills, and the treasury bonds, treasury bills, they are being preferred by financial institutions like banks. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to mention. When you look at the profitability of a bank like KCB, they made around 37 billion profits. Almost half of it comes from interest from the government, which is a component of borrowing which was made by the government.
Okay,
so once now the domestic market is crowded out because financial institutions have gone to borrow, then now that money becomes thin even for us to borrow loans.
Okay, now it is also like now Kenya should expect high taxes to repay the loans themselves.
I was looking at a speech which was given by John Bahati, who is the treasurer for the CS for Treasury. He was saying in this coming budget, we don't expect any changes kind of on the rates of taxes. So issues to do VAT, which was initially proposed to go to 18%, it will remain at 16%. Issues to do with fuel levies, the rates remain at that. But now what the government is forecasting is known as tax efficiency. Tax efficiency is to collect more taxes on the potential persons. You know, even farmers even could be targeted, and you know, at the end of the day, farmers, you know, and at the end of the day, every income that you are getting has to be taxed unless it is exempted in the income tax. So if the government has not been that efficient in collecting taxes from, they call it the difficult to tax sectors like the jua kali. Unajua imekuwa ngumu ku tax so because even it becomes informal. Even the keeping of records has been so difficult to an extent. The government becomes difficult to collect.
In
so
talking of the agriculture in Juakali, you know, these are forms of employment. Now let's dive into business and employment itself. With the highlights that for the budget, that is the 2025-2026 budget of what Kenyans should expect. Will the budget create more jobs, or should Kenyans expect tougher times?
At the end of the day, even in every budget, the key focus is for government is basically, apart from putting in place infrastructure, having a conducive environment for businesses to thrive, and even one of it now, young people to get employment.
Is it part of the budget? You know, from the highlights.
It's part of the budget. Also, when you look at sectors like there is appeal which was done last year. I don't know at what stage it is now, known as a creative economy support bill, and one of it was to create a fund, a creative economy support fund. So that if you are in creative industry now and you want support, you want to come up with to expand your business, then you go to the government. There are even some in the sectors of economy like agriculture. You know, government is now trying to make agriculture to be so attractive even to the young people. Even the components of smart agriculture. I was recently in a university where we were training our farmers on issues to do with smart farming. So the government wants to make it attractive, and when you look at in the budget, there is a focus of the government on this something super highway, where now the government is expanding the fiber network, internet network, also issues to do with even that smart agriculture, the creative economy.
So can you say the government is trying its best to make sure that Kenyans, they give Kenyans a conducive environment to thrive for the economy itself?
Sure. When we narrow to even the small and medium enterprises, the government, when you look at the proposals which are being made, they want to make that environment to be conducive to small and medium enterprises, because that is the major component in which employment can be created. Either as employment,
even for the small SMEs. How? Because
look at even the mama mboga and what. So there is this value addition aspect being discussed. There is a county industrial something in park, like there is one which is being done in Njoro, that will provide opportunities even to mama mbogas and even to people to do value addition on the products that they are producing. So those are included in the budget.
We can say now there is hope for our country. There is hope for our country itself.
And Angela, all along, even since independence, the major focus of the government, apart from providing that conducive environment for businesses to thrive, even for foreign investors to come in Kenya, the major thing is basically the creation of employment, either directly or indirectly. And
there, when it comes now, we have measured on what the government is doing. Is there anything that the citizens, you know, can do to support or complement what is in the budget itself? Yeah.
In the aspect of you know, it now requires personal strategies. Because now if the government is focusing on the super highway, there's a term that is being used where the government is increasing connectivity, and they are talking of, they have done around 13,000 kilometers of fiber connection. They are targeting 100,000 kilometers, and that they are now currently in conjunction with Kenya Power, so that the lines are going along the power lines. So probably now for us as Wananchi, we focus on the businesses which we can take opportunity of the existing opportunities which are being created by the government through now that balancing act of the budget making process.
Oh, that's interesting. And now let's dive into that is impact on the investors and the financial markets that you had mentioned before we went for a short break. Should we expect the budget to affect that is the financial markets in Kenya, for example, the stock exchange market?
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day,
in a positive way.
yeah, positive and even negative way. You know, that is why I was telling you, doing the budget is a balancing act, a tough balancing act. When you miss something, then like I was telling you of the fiscal consolidation, where the government is tries to kind of contain the expenditure. When it contains that expenditure, then it means, you know, the government is the major consumer, major consumer of goods or services. So if the government reduces that expenditure, then now it will have an impact on the economy, like even for businesses, construction or whichever, and you know some are listed in the stock exchange. So when that is affected and their profitability goes down, then ultimately when the profitability goes down in with the company, you know, if you are investor, you are likely to remove your money to go invest in other things. That is how it affects. And then a positive aspect now is where the government is creating a conducive environment through offering incentives. There is this special economic zones. You know, special economic zones, the government is doing some incentives in terms of a tax reduction. So when you do an investment in a special economic zone, the tax component, there is even the tax holiday. You don't pay for tax. Initially, it was to a period of 10 years. So if you are an investor from outside and you know there is no tax you will pay in the next 10 years, then you will come in.
Yeah, it's true. So they're creating a conducive environment. And how can these other places, for example, the stock of exchange, that is the bond and the interest, position themselves to benefit from the budget that we're expecting, that is the 2025-2026 budget?
Yeah, thank you, Angela. I can say, unfortunately, you know, now when financial institutions are seeing the government will borrow more from the domestic market, then they will position themselves to loan to the government. So now, if they have positioned themselves to loan to the government, then it means you mwananchi getting loan becomes difficult. Your time in eroding out there.
It is going to affect the Kenyan citizens.
It affects.
Our interest is nezongezeka.
Yes, a way of you being discouraged to borrow loans.
The interest,
you know, to financial institutions, they are also having a risk management. They see it's more certain to loan to the government, that the government will repay that amount than the mwananchi, and that is why they are willing to get to advance or to loan the government at a rate of 8%, 10%. Then when you want, your rate will go up to 20%. So if it's 20%, then now you decide not to borrow. So deciding not to borrow, now they have available cash to advance to the government, because that is assure it will be repaid.
And now this tells us that if this happens, Kenyans will not be borrowing more.
And that, I think that has been the case for the last few years, for some almost 12 years now or 15 years. I remember during the time of Kibaki, financial institutions even pitching tents outside, even in the streets, and encouraging people to borrow. That one is no longer there.
It is no longer there because when the interest they are high for common mwananchi.
But at least the Kibaki government was trying as much as possible to at least reduce to borrow less from the domestic market. When it borrows less from the domestic market as the government,
people
then
are going to borrow more.
There will now be available money by the financial institutions for the people to borrow and businesses to borrow.
And what can a common mwananchi, unajua kuna watu wenye wamezoea, they rely on borrowing, you know, from the financial institutions, you know, and if you know the government will be the financial institutions in our country zitakuwa zina lend the government money, we should expect the interest itself to rise. What can Kenyans to do when you wanategemea loans? What can they do to fill that gap?
Thank you, Angela. I think that topic is so wide. Probably I request we will do it in another time. Well, it's so wide in the sense we now want to analyze which debts can you borrow. You know, there is bad debts, there is a good debt. That good debt is a debt that you borrow, and it will at least it will assist you to propel you to the next level. If you are doing business and you are borrowing at a rate of 10%, then when you invest that amount, you need to get an income whose rate is more than the 10% you borrow. So if you borrow at the 10%, then when it comes to now utilizing that, you are generating an income of less than 10%. Then it means the debt has become a burden to you.
Okay,
So it's
Kenyan
so wide.
citizens umesikia. So find ways to curb, you know, if you rely on debt sana, figure out, you know, the good debt and the bad
And the
debt
bad debt.
itself. Yeah, and now let's check that is, because you're expecting a budget to be released, you say there is a policy that will be released in April, right? You know, let's talk about public participations. And you saw last year the way the young people, the Gen Z reacted to the budgeting ilikuwa release, and you said it affected some of the things in when it comes to the economy itself. How can the young people, now we're addressing the young people, how can they participate, you know, in general public budgeting process?
Thank you, Angela. And I like the 2010 constitution. It really provided authority to the mwananchi in terms of public participation. And you know, this public participation, it goes all the way even to when the county government or even the national government wants to do a supplementary. You know, as per the constitution, we are expected to make a participation on that. Was we have elected people, yes, and they are representing us. So those decisions they are making, we as wananchi, we are expected to participate.
Has this been happening in our country?
Broadly, it's an area that has Kenya needs to do to up its game. We say to pull up its socks. There was one which was done in a national one, which was done in KICC, kind of a budget somewhere in November. You know, this budget making process starts all the way from August. So August, so we are talking about the 2025-2026 budget. It started all the way from August. Now that process is moving. Up to now, there was a public participation. That is in relation to the national budget. You know, there is also the budget for the county. So a public participation was done. The public participation was done in November, and it was advertised in the media. And you don't know what the government expected, because kama sisi wote tungeenda kwa KICC. You know, we are citizens and we are the stakeholders. So they expected to enter KICC. We give an input. Though they also provided an alternative. There was a virtual option. There was also written submissions where you could do your written submission. And we encourage our citizens to participate. Then there is a draft budget policy statement which was uploaded somewhere January on the website of the National Treasury. We as well as wananchi are expected to make participation, give your input in relation to that. It's possible probably kuna kanjia kabarabara imewekwa kwa budget iundwe, but you as the citizens of that area amtaki yo mnataka yenye inatokea upande ingine. You have that right as a citizen. So it was giving an opportunity. And I also want to encourage our wananchi. I think currently in relation to the county government, because we are county governments in the serikali yetu, there is a budget making process, public participation, which I think it will happen majorly in April. So we are expected as wananchi to also participate. It's a right. It's a right. Can I delve kidogo to India? India, if any issues to do with accountability, the public are being are taking part.
Okay, so this brings us to that point. Kenya should also participate. Make sure that you find a way to participate, you know, for the budget in April, because there will be a platform in April. As we get wind up in 1 minute, you could give us your view generally on the highlights. What is the economic outlook of our country, that is for 2025-2026 budget in 1 minute?
You know, Kenya's economy majorly depend on the agriculture so the economy of Kenya again is likely its projection is based on our weather patterns will be in Kenya. You have a positive weather patterns, then we are likely to have even food secure sour. Then issues to do with even the stability of the country. If issues to do with Gen Z and whatever, we don't have, and it's the government to be proactive enough to at least deal with the issues of the wananchi. Then, as per the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, they are estimating our economy to grow by around 5.3%, again, which is way below what was anticipated when the Vision 2030
was giving out. All I believe when it comes to you have understood the budget, you know, and you umelewa the things and the tips on how you can, the things that you can do that even if the budget doesn't favor you, at least, you know, there are a few things that you can do to make sure that you still maneuver and make sure that business survive and thrive. And thank you so much for tuning in for this segment. Thank you so much for availing yourself, sir. I believe Kenyans have learned a lot. That has been Money Monday, your go-to show for financial tips, you know, as a business person, as an investor, as a common wananchi, as a day-to-day person. This is where we give you all the tips on how you can unlock success and accumulate wealth when it comes to the financial side, because, you know, we need to finance in order to survive. My name is Angela Kabete, and I have had an amazing time interacting and engaging with you. Till next time, have a productive week ahead. Bye bye.